meeting is being recorded.
Good evening or good afternoon, everybody. This is Dr. Duncan McCollum, and I'm coming to you live from KSCO Radio. I have a very important show today. I believe there's some really important information that came out regarding psychotropic drugs and serotonin, the hypotheses of depression. And I have an expert today, Dr. Reverend Rev Shaw. Dr. Shaw, can you hear me?
I can hear you well. Can you hear me?
Awesome. Okay. Thank you so much. So let me just set off, say a couple things, and I'll introduce you, and then we can go forward with some information that I think is going to be very important to the people out there to hear. So a little bit more, there was a article that came out just this month that's called A Decisive Blow to the Serotonin Hypotheses of Depression. And this was put out by a mega study of information for over the years regarding the use of psychotropic drugs, specifically selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors on depression. And there's been a lot of controversy throughout the years, overridden by a lot of stuff we'll go into today. But I'm just going to read Dr. Moncrieff, and I'm probably pronouncing her name incorrectly, but at the end of her press release, she says, patients should not be told that depression is caused by low serotonin or by a chemical imbalance, and they should not be led to believe that antidepressants work by targeting these hypothetical and unproven abnormalities. In particular, the idea that antidepressants work in the same way as insulin for diabetes is completely misleading. We do not understand what antidepressants are doing in the brain exactly. And giving people this sort of misinformation prevents them from making an informed decision about whether to take antidepressants or not. This is from Psychology Today. Dr. Minkoff also concludes, antidepressant use has reached epidemic proportions across the world and is still rising, especially among young people. Many people who are taking them suffer side effects and withdrawal problems that can be really severe and debilitating. A major drive of this situation is the false belief that depression is due to chemical imbalances. It is high time to inform the public that this belief is not grounded in science. And we'll go into a lot more information with this, but first I want to introduce my guest speaker today, Reverend Rev Shaw, and I'm going to give a little bit of his background here. And you've got so many amazing things that you've done here. I'm going to hit some of them, and if I miss some important ones, just let me know. So Reverend Shaw is the Director of Public Affairs and spokesperson for the Citizens Commission on Human Rights International, a more than 50-year-old mental health industry watchdog. He is also Executive Director of the NAACP Inglewood South Bay Branch in California, with a long history of working with the NAACP. He's past president of the Compton NAACP, and again, current president of Inglewood. He was the first president from Compton to be appointed to the California State Chair, overseeing the Children's Task Force, working in both Compton and Inglewood. He has met with many members of Congress, working internationally to get the Child Mediation Safety Act passed, which prohibits schools from forcing students to take psychotropic drugs as a requisite to their education. He has worked in the psychiatric field to an institution against racism. Let's see, you graduated from Pepperdine University. You were a sheriff in Los Angeles, president of the World Literacy Crusade. Gosh, what haven't you done, Reverend? It's so nice to have you on the show.
Well, I want to correct a couple of things. I attended Pepperdine University. I didn't actually graduate from there.
Hold on one sec. We're not getting you on, Reverend.
Okay.
Hold on one sec. We're having a little technical difficulty.
Okay.
I may not have the right thing pressed here. David, can you hear me, Reverend?
I can hear you very well.
Okay, so hold on a sec. You can probably hear me now. I can hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you well.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear.
I think I need to have his mic turned off in here for my headphones or something. I can hear him at first. I don't know. Nothing up there needs to be off? Okay. Well, this is the beauty of being in a one of the last remaining vestiges of free radio. You know, something about KSCO for you, Reverend, that you don't know, that we are completely, well, KSCO is owned privately. All manner of people can get on here and speak. There's nothing that is censored here. It's an amazing, amazing station. It's the only one of its kind that still looks, well, it's fashioned after 1940s RCA Victor recording studio. So then you get him, David?
I can hear you very well. Okay. Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
No, not yet.
Yeah, I don't know what's holding it up, but I can hear Duncan, and I can hear you very well.
Okay.
Okay. Wait a minute. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Does that make it to where you can hear me?
Yeah. We got you now. Perfect.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Good.
Yeah, I have to be smarter than the technology because I had it on mute so it wouldn't echo. So that's my fault.
Okay, good enough.
Okay.
All right. So there, that good?
Okay.
Still echoing. Okay, how's that? That's good.
Okay.
Well, I think I'm going to echo a little bit, but Reverend Shaw, why don't you tell us a little bit about your understanding of what's going on and what your experience is with this this study that came out? I think we got rid of the echo now. So go ahead, Doc.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for having me on the show. This is a topic that everybody has not been brave enough to bring to the forefront and talk about. So I thank you for being able to give me this opportunity to be able to do so. The actual fact is that the University College of London reviewed 17 major studies published over several decades and found no convincing evidence to support the chemical imbalance of the brain theory. The thing is,
yes. Okay. Good. Go ahead, Doc. I'm sorry. We got it.
The thing is that this has been what has been used to make millions of billions of dollars. I think $15.6 billion are made every year based on the idea that there's a chemical imbalance of the brain theory. There's no truth to it. And the whole thing that your audience needs to understand is the fact that when we come to the field of psychiatry, it is not based on science. The idea that we buy the fact that something is based on science and because science is supposed to be vetted, it's supposed to have gone through all of the trials to prove that it is what it is, but we see in the field of psychiatry, it is not the science. It's Diagnostic Statistical Manual, very impressive name, but there's no statistics in it. So then therefore we're running this big fraud on the public, making people think that we can help them in the field of psychiatry when in actuality, they're not helping, they are harming. And I'll just say this, as a minister, I base things on its fruit. What is the outcome? What is the result? And the result of psychiatry, with all of the billions being spent on it, and more money with every passing bill being sent to mental health, we have veterans killing themselves at 20 to 22 a day, and be mindful of the fact that we're not at war. So why is all of this mental illness supposedly coming out of the veterans? We're not like in Vietnam or one of those places right now. We're not at war. So why are we giving these veterans mass doses of these drugs when what have they been exposed to that it would make them need any type of assistance? In fact, I've had veterans tell me that they have been given drugs without even an examination. When they leave and they're retiring or they're leaving the service, they're handed pills and they haven't even been examined. So, I just want to reemphasize that there is no medical science behind this. This is not a scientific field. This is pretty much, if I can be blunt about it, guesswork.
Yeah, I was looking through some of the statistics. The first SSRI came out in the 80s. It was Prozac. And, the hypothesis was that it would handle this chemical imbalance in the brain. And so even though there was very little evidence to back it up, it became, like you mentioned, a multi-billion-dollar industry. But the amount of I won't call them side effects. The effects of these things, as you're mentioning, are devastating, and to our veterans, as you said, but even the children. I mean, I remember a few years ago, they came out with a strawberry flavored Prozac for infants because they wanted the kids to be able to take these, what they call selective serotonin and reuptake inhibitors. And just imagine the imaginations that are destroyed. I mean, to me, these seem to be, I've called them chemical straitjackets, where they're changing the personality of these human beings by giving them a chemical personality, a biochemical beingness, if you will. And I've seen in my 35 years in the medical field as a chiropractor and nutritionist, I've seen just people's lives really damaged by these drugs. And a lot of them, now I wanted to say right off the bat, listen, just because this study came out that said that these things have been debunked, if you're on them, do not do anything until you talk to your medical doctor about them, because some of these things are so addictive and harmful. If you try to get off of them by yourself, you're going to cause yourself potentially some damage. So I recommend that you look into this, you get some of the studies that are online, talk to a medical doctor that would be willing to help you get off of them if you're on them, but also just understand that there's a multi-billion-dollar industry driving this whole this whole psychotropic chemical imbalance theory. And it's now being proven by millions and millions of individual cases that it's incorrect.
Well, I would like to point out that the Citizens Commission on Human Rights for years have been challenging this chemical imbalance of the brain theory. It has never been proven. There's no clinical trials or anything to prove that people even have a chemical imbalance of the brain theory. When you're talking about something like that, you should be able to show the CAT scans or the blood tests or something to show that the individual actually have it. I can go, and I'm not ashamed to say it, I'm a diabetic. I can go anywhere in the world and they can test my blood sugar and stuff and tell you that I'm a diabetic. That's science. They can look at you and tell what types of cancer you have based on what is going on, within your body. That's science. But when you can go to 5 different psychiatrists, get 5 different diagnoses, but be put on 5 different types of medications, which we just call drugs, because we don't really see the benefit of these drugs, then there's a problem there. And there's no consistency, there's no science. and basically the therapist does what he feels is best. And, I mean, what is that worth? So that's the thing that we have to understand. And this has been going on, this chemical imbalance of the brain theory did not just show up. CCHR has been probably fighting this issue almost 50 years. This originated in the 1950s, and they started using this, and people bought into it. And so we're looking at a psychological manipulation that has occurred, backed by media, backed by a whole bunch of information that's been put out on the airwaves to convince people that they having these type of issues occurring within the brain when, there's no proof of it. It's just a money-making campaign of advertisement that pushes a theory.
Yeah, it's really good that this came out. And, I know that there's been a lot of different people speaking out a bit about this throughout the day. Here's another study I just want to point out. It comes in Scientific Tech Daily, and it's another article that just came out this month, July 25th, that said scientists found no evidence that depression is caused by chemical imbalances or low serotonin levels. And, I'm bringing this up because it's all over the news. Your organization, CCHR, Citizens Commission on Human Rights, did a very large article, Chemical Imbalances Cause Depression. It's a myth. And, I think the good news is this is going to give us our life back and realize that, you can do something about your life. You just have to make the right decision. There's organizations out there that can help people when they're having problems in areas of their life. But, I did a show 2 weeks ago on what happens in 60 seconds in a cell in your body. There's 60 million functions that happen every minute in your cell, and you have 75 trillion cells in your body, all controlled by the brain, and innate intelligence is this being, this ability to survive throughout the eons. And if we think that there is a drug that can do something to a synapse in our brain, where this amazing vehicle that we've have to live our life with is doing all those functions, 75 trillion cells doing 60 million functions per minute by the brain. We got to be kidding ourselves if we think that these selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors are really doing anything for us. In fact, we know that the side effects of them, which are direct effects, are causing all kinds of problems. And suicide, one of them. Dependence on other drugs is other, and they actually cause depression as well.
Well, I thank you for mentioning the fact that the drugs do what the drugs do. We call something side effects because that's not what we want the public to know, or that's not the intended outcome. But the drugs do what the drugs do. And so, a person, see, my question is this. If my mother dies, and my mother has died, there's a certain sadness that comes over me. I had a good mother. So just because I'm sad, or my sadness lasts 6 months or 9 months, what's to say that I'm mentally ill? What is the appropriate response I'm supposed to have to that? So now you can say I'm depressed and give me a pill to handle what has been going on since the beginning of time. I imagine when Cain killed Abel, Eve cried.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? She was depressed that one of her children would have killed another one of her children. Yeah. I mean, so this isn't, so now we take the normal behavior of people in tragic situations, can't feed my family, those type of things. What? I'll just give you an example. A man can't feed his family. Christmas is coming up. The kids are all happy. They want toys. He knows he can't provide it. He goes into a sadness or a depression, whatever they call it. But now they will give him a pill to handle that situation because he's depressed. But if he hit the lottery the next day, he's no longer depressed because now he can handle his situation. So it's not necessarily that he's suffering from mental illness, he has a problem that he can't solve. The moment the problem is solved, the mental illness disappears. So therefore, is it really a mental illness? So that's what we have to look at. It's not a mental illness.
Another very interesting statistic is that the United States is 4% of the world population, but we take 80% of all of the opioid drugs. So you talked about drugging symptoms. And in your case, you were just mentioning psychotropic symptoms like sadness or, some kind of pain or sorrow or anxiety or, any of those kind of emotions that are unwanted. Well, pain it's all in that category. The United States, which is only 4% of the world population, takes 80% of all the opioids and 75% of all the drugs in the world. And we're still not only sick as a nation, and 60% of us are diabetic or pre-diabetic. So you'd think with all of these medications coming out, and so these psychotropic serotonin reuptake inhibitors aren't the only one, you'd think if they were working, we would be a healthy country. But instead, they're finding different drugs to give us to cover up the symptoms of different drugs. One of the things with these psychotropic drugs is pretty soon people are put on cocktails of 3 or 4 different psychotropic drugs to try to find the right combination to handle this chemical imbalance, which we now know is not true.
Well, the fact is that, we've seen this with children, we've seen this with adults where they had multiple drugs because one drug doesn't work, then they put another drug, and we can actually see how the person gets worse. He's had a loved one die, he's in a state of sadness, and the reason why I say sadness and don't mention depression is their word for sadness. Depression is their word to handle a situation, which gives it a different slant as if it's something different from sadness or severe sadness or whatever. The thing is that when we give people multiple drugs, when we started off with the fact that he had a sadness, we gave him a drug, he started hearing voices. We gave him another drug and he started having body tics and involuntary movements of the muscle. We gave him another drug and he started feeling like he's suicidal. This is the interesting thing about the field of mental health. You or I can have a situation. I'm going to give you what actually happened, a case that I was just working on. A young man was working in Buffalo. He was working for a store that required them to work 10 to 14 hours or more a day. Someone on his job told him to take this pill. He took the pill and it seemed like a 12 or 14-hour shift was 2 hours. They told him where he could go get a prescription, and the drug was, I believe, Adderall. And so here we look up and we find the fact that he's taking this drug, but then he starts having some psychosis that are the side effects of the drug. Now he's being treated as a mental health case, even though the drugs caused him to have that. All he was trying to do was figure out how to get through these long shifts and be productive and move on with his life. Then he started having the side effects. Then they start treating that as a mental health case. And one day he's at a hotel and he walks out in the cold with no shirt on, no shoes on, can't figure out how to get back in the hotel, and he dies. And it's like, but all he was trying to do was figure out how to work more hours, and there was no mental illness in his past. But now he ends up dead. It ends up on my lines at CCHR to go out there and work with the parent to try to educate people on what's going on. But there was no reason for that kid to die.
Yeah.
And for them to do that is not cool.
Yeah.
And we got countless stories of CCHR of young kids who wanted to kill themselves and things like that. And if the commercial says that it can cause suicidal thoughts and actions. What could be wrong with a child that we would give them a drug that could serve as a death sentence? Because it gets on our nerves, we can take the risk of killing him?
I know, it's crazy. You know, I'm going to take a second, just reintroduce you. This is Reverend Rev Shaw, and he's the Director of Public Affairs for Citizens Commission on Human Rights. He's also president of the NAACP and Inglewood Branch. And we're talking about, you know, this article that came out, the deceptive blow to the serotonin hypothesis of depression. Since a radio show, a lot of times people, you know, come in and come out as they're traveling in their car. So I want to make sure they understand what we're talking about. And that is the 30 or 40 year idea that selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors are handling a chemical imbalance in the brain is basically shown to have no foundation and no clinical proof that it is true at all. So they're saying that depression is not a chemical imbalance. And this is a mega study, as you said, 17 large studies. If you look up, you just look up and search this, a decisive blow to serotonin hypotheses of deception, and you can get the article yourself and take into a lot of different areas. But because of the media or the public relations promoting the use of these drugs throughout these last many decades, and because people, I believe that this article says that 93% of the people believe that depression is a chemical imbalance. So they've done a really good job of pushing their narrative that the people believe that there is a chemical imbalance causing depression. And in fact, I have the CDC paper here, Center for Disease Control, and they're saying that during 2015 to 18, 13% of all Americans age 18 and over are taking antidepressants. So that is pretty amazing. You know, 13% of the people, of 360 million people, are on some kind of antidepressants in the last 30 days. It's unbelievable to me that many people, and imagine the money made off of that. What did you say the amount of money made was?
It was about $15.6 billion, but we have to understand that the top three selling antidepressants, Prozac and Lexapro and Zoloft, Prozac, since 2006 to 2020, increased 27%. Lexapro increased 37%. Zoloft increased 61%. So the usage are going up. And in the fact that the usages are going up, that means they're trying to put more and more people on these drugs. And it becomes a point that you'd have to ask yourself, if so many people are on these drugs, are we really looking at mental illness? I mean, if you get to the point where more people are on psychiatric drugs because they're crazy, then what is the standard for being crazy? So we have to look at this in a different way. You know, unfortunately, so many lives have been destroyed. Working for CCHR, I get the opportunity to look at a lot of these cases and things like this. And from my post, I'm in the streets. I'm working with organizations. People are calling me all the time. And I'm just telling you that the current mental health system is failing us, greatly. I mean,
Look at Fred. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. I can't hear you out there.
You can't hear him or me. Hello.
Okay.
I'm sorry, we're having some other technical difficulty for some reason here.
That was him calling me on my phone, right?
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
And the good news is this is all on a Zoom call, so we can touch it up and put it out. So that's why I like to do this doubly.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Are you going to call him?
You can call me right now, I guess.
You gonna call him? Oh, we're talking. Can you hear us? You can't hear me at all? Oh, you hear it. Go ahead and talk, Fred, so we can see if you can get.
Okay, yeah, I'm hoping that you can hear me. I figured that text was coming from him. I mean, the calls were coming from him. I just couldn't stop in the middle of the show to try to answer. But
why don't we do this? I'm gonna do one of my commercial breaks. Why don't you call back in? Just hang up, not on the Zoom call, but call back in. Let's run one of my 2-minute commercials, and then we'll get back on with Fred.
So you want me to hang up on the phone that I'm using and call back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's good. All right.
Here's what they have to say.
A year and 2 months ago, I got knocked down by a horse and I got a grade 2 pull on my hamstring. And there, everything went to hell. Basically, I was walking 3.5 miles a day and went from walking less and less because it was so painful and my other knee started hurting me. And then I stepped off the ladder, jammed my knee. It took me the next morning 5 minutes by the time I stood.
Yes, can you hear me?
So painful. At the same time, I knew that was find out. Make sure you don't have it on. I'll check to see if Dr. McCollum is the same. So which one, and we'll have you back.
Okay, wait a minute. Make sure I do what? You said make sure I don't have what?
Walk. I totally recommend this one time, and you'll just go, whoa. You don't realize how much you use your toes for balance until there's no feeling in them. And so I've got the feeling back in my toes, and my balance is greatly improved. Definitely recommend it.
So call today for your $49 introductory special on the TRT machine to see if it works for you. 9990 831 459 9990. Reverend Shaw back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you on there, Dr. Shaw?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, fantastic. We all good? Yeah, I've heard on the Facebook group that they can't hear you quite as well, but that's fine.
Okay, I'll just, whatever we need to do, as long as we need to make this happen.
Yeah, well, we're good. Okay, so this is Dr. Duncan McCollum, McCollum Wellness Radio. We have the subject, a decisive blow to serotonin hypothesis of deception. I have Reverend Frederick Shaw, who's one of the leading individuals, the public relations guy for the Citizen Commission on Human Rights. He's president of Inglewood NAACP, and we're discussing this subject about the psychotropic drug industry and how it's been going off of a false premise, which now has been debunked to show that there is no medical evidence showing that depression is a chemical imbalance of the brain. The peoples of Earth have been sold this for decades, and there's been a lot of damage done to people because of these particular medications. You don't want to get off of these medications if you're on them until you talk to your doctor, but I think it's time to do some research. I have another article here I'm just going to quote. It's from the American Journal of Psychology, May 1st, 2019. It says there's no support for the historical candidate gene or candidate gene by interaction hypothesis for major depression. But basically what that's saying is they were looking for a depression gene, like you might have a diabetic gene or a Alzheimer's gene or a cancer gene. They can't find one. They have not been able to find a gene for depression. And the Medical Psychological Society has basically sold us the fact that the chemical imbalance is something that they're treating based on something wrong with the body, but there's zero evidence to prove it. And so I have Reverend Shaw on to help clarify some of this information. And so, Doc, why don't you go ahead and speak about that a little bit more, and we'll just try to do the best we can with the technical difficulties we're having, but that's probably we're overcoming such great odds in the world right now that the technology doesn't even want us to get this information out.
Well, I agree with you on that. The thing is this. I mentioned the word psychological manipulation. The thing is that an idea comes forth, someone with big enough money pushes it. We get our political figures who are not scientists themselves to accept it. We get it accepted in major institutions. We push it out on the public as true. The public believes it's true. Everybody's believing it's true. And then we end up suffering the results of something that was never proven. There's a lot of people who are responsible for what is going on now and what has been the chemical imbalance of the brain theory and how it was pushed and the money was being made. Where was the FDA? Psychiatrists right now are saying, oh, we never pushed that idea. Well, let's say that what you're saying is true. You didn't push the idea. You sure didn't counter the idea. If somebody says law enforcement is doing A, B, and C, law enforcement will counter that if they think it's untrue or a lie. Well, how come psychiatry never stood up and said, we never said there's a chemical imbalance of the brain. We never backed that theory. No, they did back it. Now it's being exposed. And so now they want to distance themselves from it when actually they help perpetuate. This is so bad. A lady came to the CCHR museum. Your audience need to know we have one in Hollywood, California, and you can find the museum online. She learned of the chemical imbalance theory by the same people who debunked it. But she believed them when they said there was a chemical imbalance, but she didn't believe them when they said there was no chemical imbalance. Same people, because the authorities in the field are the authorities in the field. She said, I don't believe them. That's how we can be so psychologically manipulated that you can tell me the sky is blue. I believe the sky is blue. Then they tell me actually it's gray and something else mixed in and it comes out and it looks that way. And I say, I don't believe it.
Yeah. There's so much going on right now in the world that we are being told, and on many different fronts. And I think that just the fact that this study came out after 30 or 40 years of people going down the main path, not questioning it, and actually the people that tried to say something about it were censored and made to look the fool, where now we're finding out years later that the fact is that these serotonin uptake inhibitors are not really handling the problem of depression. They might have some interim effects, but it's not the serotonin levels. And what these things do, by the way, they're called selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. They're in this little sac between two nerve endings. And what usually happens is a nerve ending would stimulate a nerve, and at that ending, the serotonin would come out and go to the next nerve, and that would create an effect of pleasure. So what the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors do, they don't let that chemical go away between the two synapses, and over time they burn out and they cause more and more problems. So, it's kind of like itching an itch. When you itch it for a second, it feels good, but if you keep itching it and itching it and itching it, pretty soon it's going to cause you to bleed, and it's going to could cause permanent damage to the skin where you're itching it. Well, that's what's happening to the neurons and the synapses. And the fact is, it's not a chemical imbalance. It has to do with life. It has to do with livingness. It has to do with communication. It has to do with finding something that works in your life and pursuing it, and having the people around you that can help you find a purpose. You know, I mean, you watch a dog, there's an old phrase that says a dog in the hunt ain't got no fleas. You know, a dog that's chasing a rabbit, man, he's happy as a clam. He's going after his goals and he's having a blast. But soon as that rabbit gets away, he's on the porch and all he can do is scratch his fleas. And it's, so purpose is so important in human beings, having a purpose. And we've been dulled down to a point where people don't really have a purpose, and it's really a shame because in a lot of our schools and all this stuff, and of course they wanted to mandate drugs in some of the schools that say you can't come to the school, if you're not on these selective or some kind of psychotropic drug. And they could prescribe them without your parents knowing in some places. And I think you worked on that, didn't you, Reverend, with the Children Mandate Safety Act for psychotropic drugs?
Well, what we did was we had what was called the Child Safety Medication Act. I think we got that passed in 2003. And basically what it says is that parents could not be forced to put their kids on psychiatric drugs as a condition for being in school. And what they would do is they would take and tell you, hey, we think your kid needs to, because he was being annoying to the teacher, we think your kid needs to see a psychiatrist, be put on drugs. We think he has ADHD. You say, nah, that's foolishness. I know my kid. Over time, they would actually file medical neglect and move to take your child from the home. So what we did, it was the Citizens Commission on Human Rights who actually led it. And they were able to get a lot of the support from the Republican Party. And then where I came in, I was able to get some people in California with the NAACP. Alice Huffman was very instrumental. People have their ups and downs with her, but she was very instrumental in trying to protect the children and so forth. And she pushed it to the national office, and they supported what we were talking about, and that brought in Democratic support. So we were able to get enough people to vote that in, and then it was signed into law by President Bush, the young one. And so, we were able to do that and make the change. And that's what we need people to do. You have groups out there who listen to your show. Those people can contact us and be part of this movement that we need. Don't get caught up in any differences we have, if we're black, white, what our religion is. There is a force out there that's taking us all down. And we have to come together and join forces. If you ever watch Games of Thrones, there was a big thing where all of the different kingdoms had to try to come together to defend themselves against the White Walkers or Night Walkers or whatever they were. Well, that's what we have to do now. And then after we finish that, then we can get into our petty differences and stuff. But our whole survival is at stake right here, because if you drug every person and people start having hallucinations and running red lights, how many deaths do we get? I had a young man tell me that his psychiatrist was a forensic this, that, and other. And he had ADHD and nobody could tell him he didn't have it. I said, well, just answer this to me. How far did you have to drive to the doctor? He said about 15 miles. Okay. And you did that through red lights and stop signs and with other cars on the roads and stuff? He said, yeah. I said, well, if you couldn't pay attention, how did you get to the office?
Wow.
You see, we don't look at it like that. One more story. There was a young man, I used to own group homes for boys. We never medicated them and we educated them. The worst reader in that whole group home, who could not actually, if you put his name out on white sheets of paper, he couldn't read his name. We had him reading to where he and his probation officer started crying. Because the idea is you can't educate these people. You can't, we got all of this special education. It's all foolishness that the mental health field and psychiatry get the benefit from. They get to be the ones that come down and evaluate everybody. They're the ones that it's mandate that you have a mental health component. You do it. So they make this big money, and all the incentives to improve die out. So if we changed it right now, they said, me and you are running this country. And we said, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take away all of the incentives for people to fail. Because right now, you get money if the kids read below a certain level. But what if you turned it around and said, you can actually get paid amount if your kids read above a certain level? That changes the whole game. See, you can't get a medicine unless that medicine can actually have none of these side effects. They would come up with it, but they don't have to, and they can get paid for giving them medication that causes the psychosis. If you look at Prozac and stuff, they give it to you for suicidal tendencies, but if you read the label, it says it can cause suicidal tendencies. Yeah. How is that supposed to work?
I know, it's crazy, you know, and you're absolutely right. I have a little brochure on Prozac here, right? The first serotonin reuptake inhibitor. And, you know, they talk about, you know, giving it to your children. And they say before, you know, tell your doctor if your children's allergic to Prozac before you give them Prozac. And tell your doctor if they're taking any of these medications, and they list a lot of other medications. This is what always is crazy, that the doctors should be the one prescribing it and should know. Now, maybe they're coming from another doctor, but talk with a doctor or pharmacist if your child has any of the following conditions: thoughts of suicide, bipolar disorder, liver or kidney disease, a history of seizure, heart problems, diabetic, you know, and it just goes on and on about what these, why you want to be careful giving these people, especially your children, these medications. And here's another: it can cause high fever, excessive sweating, confusion, shivering, shaking, seizures, unusual behavior, agitation, hostility, thoughts of harm. Hey, we haven't even got into that, you know, and we only have a few minutes left here. We should I'd love to do another show with you sometime, get all this technical stuff worked out. There's so much more to talk about.
Anytime you want me on the show, I'll come on the show. We can talk about a variety of subjects, including that, the connection and link that we're finding between suicide and homicide. Yeah. A lot of these mass shooters have been on these drugs and stuff. It's not the sole reason they do it, but it is one of the reasons they do it. And there's papers and stuff that have been written on that. So we can get into that. We can get into electric shock. If I can, though, I want to tell your audience, and I know you're running out of time, to go to CCHR.int.org. There's a wealth of information. In fact, if you're on one of those psychiatric drugs, you can put it in our drug database and it will tell you what the so-called side effects are. And then we have the museum on that website. It's in 3D. And so if you're not in LA County and can't get to the museum in Hollywood, you can tour it on 3D. So that's CCHRINT.org. And, you know, this is an issue that has to be exposed. It is detrimental. We see the homeless population has exploded. The amount of kids that can't read and write has gotten worse. What is the benefit? And that's what we have to ask ourselves. What is the benefit? And not just the one person who benefited. Oh, so-and-so benefited. Like I was looking with Matt Lauer on the Tom Cruise thing. Oh, Brooke Shields benefited. So, well, we don't know if she benefited because the story isn't closed. And the second of all, if 10 of us jump off a bridge and one survived, does that mean that jumping off a bridge is not dangerous? So that's what we have to do.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you coming on in short notice. I was listening to these articles about, we're about to finish. We got 3 more minutes, but you know, the disproving chemical imbalances as the cause of depression has been the subject today. It's all over the news. You should look it up yourself. You should talk to your doctor, whoever prescribed those for you, or your family, and see what you can do. A lot of it has to do at this point, in order to help yourself, you've got to make sure your body's whole. You got to work on the nutrition. You know, as a chiropractor, of course, I want to make sure that your nervous system's healthy. As a nutritionist, we want to make sure that, do you know that lead is the number one metal cause associated with lead toxicity is depression. So lead alone can cause depression. Mercury causes anxiety. So here for the last 30 years, rather than testing any kids for any of these harmful toxins, we've been throwing these harmful toxins at them that have put them in chemical handcuffs. And sure, yeah, some kids probably have been help somehow or other. We don't know where they'd be without it, you know. But I think it's a subject well worth continuing. I'm really glad that this publication was done, and I'm so glad that in, you know, less than 24 hours you were able to come on the phone with me. So any last parting words, and we'll let you go.
Well, you know, the thing is that you're spot on when you talk about the lead. We can also take that. They do not look and send people through medical examinations to see if there's an underlying cause. How do you tell the difference between anemia and depression? Somebody's babbling incoherently and somebody that has a brain tumor, the thyroid, the urinary tract, they can mirror what looks like mental illness. So if we don't go in and investigate and see if there's an underlying cause, we have done a great disservice to the people.
Yeah, you're right. Hey, Reverend Shaw, thank you so much. We've got less than 30 seconds left. Really appreciate it. It's nice meeting you, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you.
Anytime. Thank you.